Hey, good morning. Really appreciate everybody coming out early this morning. I want to thank Marcus, Tom, and Fusion Sport for having this opportunity to be able to present human performance and how it impacts and benefits the tactical community. I want to say thanks to a few of the people I saw in the crowd, Gerard from Megawave, Mark, saw Jacob from Perch. Together, is one thing I've learned in my career as a former PJ is it takes a team to accomplish something when it comes to human performance. And getting to work with folks like Dr. Josh Hagan, meeting Travis and talking to him as well, is a lot of this, the team effort that goes into this is really it's not about being right or who's right, it's about what's right. And I've kind of learned that throughout this time, which is really important because whether it's at work or life or on the battlefield, we never do anything alone. My background, been in the fitness or human performance industry for about 29 years. The gray should show it. Retired this last year after 26 years in the Air Force. My strong suit is rescue, not PowerPoint. That's for the record. So who we are, been around for about 10 years now, and we're kind of considered and been coined the avionics teams for human weapons system. Right now we do a lot of work with the military. It's a very integrated and comprehensive approach. Last year, we were able to present at the TSAC. Taylor Davis, one of my teammates that works with our organization, was able to present our human performance definition, which will come in a little bit later. But really, HP, we define it as the capacity, intensity, and range of the various body systems, their specific function, collective contribution, reaction to and recovery from an activity, environment, or action. So you can kind of see in here, one of the important things, kind of note, we try to create performance supremacy, especially dealing with special operations units and military units in high-risk situations. One of the biggest focuses we have is kind of the acute and chronic stress. We know that acutely it's a benefit, but we've seen throughout our lifetime how bad things can get. So from a personal and professional standpoint, it's been kind of the mission of what we do. We just had somebody a couple weeks ago, unfortunately, due to chronic stress, take their own life. So it's really been a mission that I think collectively we need to work on. And through the technology and this full integration, I think there's a lot we can learn when we look at the stress that happens to the body and the mind, the cumulative loads throughout a person's tactical life cycle. Kind of background, like I said, fortunately we've have the opportunity to work with a lot of organizations, working with Dr. Hagan, and been exposed to a lot of folks, manufacturing industries, energy. Everybody's looking at how they can improve their workforce. So it's been a real benefit. Had the opportunity again to be able to present, share information, learn from others at some of the conferences we've been to, and as well had the opportunity to be featured in a few articles. We're not in the spotlight, but we're kind of that momentum that keeps everything going with some of the efforts with a lot of the technologies and what we do on the ground. So our focus really right now is the tactical and operational life cycle, learning how to synchronize that across the entire spectrum, whether you call it cradle to grave, recruitment to retirement and beyond, tooth to tail. This is kind of what we do. It's been a focus now really for about 10 years before technology really helped us advance and learn more and gain insight to the human body, the human mind, and the human physiology. So we like to look at this as a family of systems. Got to watch Dr. Hagan present at OSU a couple years ago, and real importantly, he said, what gets measured gets managed. And that kind of has been sticking out in our mind for a long time because we have to have those metrics and those KPIs, but we look at it a family of systems, and foundationally, a lot of the technology, as you know, flows into SmarterBase, and that's where we aggregate a lot of the information. And there's leaders at every level that are exposed to this information, whether it's a coach that's executing the protocols or recommendations, the course chiefs who are making decisions on how training is sequenced, whether it's a senior leader looking at attrition rates and how that they can better improve their performance or reduce the attrition. So it's a really integrated approach to what we do. And with that helped us kind of define what human performance optimization is. And you can see on the bottom there what that is. And that helped us once we got all the technologies working. Again, this is just the foundational technologies that we're using, getting ready to expand. So we use ReadyBand, we use Omegawave, we use the Zephyr Bioharness, Apple products. Subjective and objective information gets collected, whether it's wellness surveys, a lot of psychological data gets coming in as well. We're looking at attributes for candidates. And again, this is going throughout the tactical life cycle. So every morning, we're up wee hours for everybody else. Our teams are out there making sure equipment's working. It's on people like it needs to be. It's working in a timely fashion. We're doing 2-minute drills, looking at all the different platforms, how it gets integrated. Are there anomalies? Are there things we could recommend immediately to make a difference and an impact to their performance? So it happens like that on a daily basis. So it kind of looks like this with the military person sitting right in the middle, and they just cycle through. And so we're about 2,000 or more candidates right now, getting ready to expand and continue to do that. So we're constantly involved. And the goal at the end of the day is to get more people on the battlefield. That's the bottom line, right? In a low-intensity conflict, there's a lot of things that we need to do, and the difference between modern warfare and accelerated warfare is really important. So we need more people, and we need more quality, and we need less injuries throughout that life cycle. Kind of talking about some of the workflow. So Smartabase has done really well to be able to bring this data together. So this is just an example. It seems very simple, but it actually works really well. So bringing all the data points, we have ability groups. So when you're dealing with hundreds of candidates every single day on every course, and every course has a different execution profile, the ability to bring in all the readiness and recovery and performance data and align them into buckets, so immediately people can execute and move that ball for them performance-wise. So what kind of is interesting about this one is all that gets aggregated, they get put into buckets, and you can see over on the red, there are no red. So that's the ones where they'll modify training or have some kind of recovery mechanism in place to get them back into training. Over time, you would have seen a lot more reds. So it's really working when you put people into ability groups based off of general performance principles. And then within those sets, you'll change your strength training program, endurance, skills, and so on. So it's worked really well on the big scheme of things, and we just keep on improving it with Smartabase as it advances and the ability to bring in that data. Another one is the tracking. So this becomes really important when we're looking at the cost. So when you're looking at somebody's either start value or value over replacement, especially with the military, the ability to track this. So similar to the previous two briefs, we have kiosks as well, which we've learned from both Travis and Dr. Hagan. And it helps manage people as they come through, looking at different areas, different injuries, what events those are, and then we go back and look, why does that occur? And then what is the cost associated with that? So we look at it from a cost perspective of every method or modality that's used, on top of looking at how long are they out of training, because that's a cost as well. So at what point do you start looking at replacing those people to put in somebody new, because the cost just becomes too much. And at the end of the day, it becomes a catch-22 where if you can't get that person on the battlefield, then they need to move on to something else. One of our use cases that we talk about, and again, working with Dr. Hagan, developing the protocol for recovery. Now this is just one method that we use, so we were able to get 2 tanks installed, and in those installations, started building the profiles through Smartabase, as you can see here, and looking at the states based off of Megawave. And what we found is it works really well when we look at the chronic states. Those chronic states, it's not only post-float that we measure, but we also kind of look at the following day and are they ready for training. So to date, pretty much every time we've put somebody in a tank, it has worked. Now it's not the only one. Methods that's used. We use several other methods, but this is kind of a primary one that if it's needed, they're in a chronic state. The challenge here has always been when you pull people out of training to put them in some kind of a recovery mechanism. And it's hard to fathom that, but from an operational perspective, if you ask an operator, if you're getting ready to be re-rolled into a mission, after you just got back from a mission, and we could give you some kind of technique that would get you ready cognitively and physiologically, would you do it? The answer is yes. So whether it's in a float tank, drinking a glass of whatever, the important thing is to help them understand it's a way to get you back into the fight faster. So we're starting to change some of the mindset versus just people think as recovery as some way to get out of training. One of the things we look at too is everybody's being concerned about being pulled off the mission. So it's the same thing. We've had operators come to us and say, look, you're going to pull me off the mission. No, that's not the goal. The goal is to keep you in the fight. Some missions have to go, especially in high-value missions. So the ability to bring in all the data into Smartabase and have some kind of execution profile and recovery method is really, really important. And Smartabase has allowed us to do that, and it's repeatable, and it happens at a fast rate. And this happens before the morning even starts. So we're able to get people to where they need to be and back in training within a couple hours. Some of our analysis, this is kind of another case that we talk about. And what's interesting here, this applies in training and also operationally. So we looked at overall readiness over time. We saw a couple little blips right there you can see with the 2 circles. And what's important to note about this is the first circle, that was intentional. So we expected that to happen. The second one, we didn't. And what we found out is there was a level of accountability for some of the people that were going through this program and what they didn't do. So there's a big drop because they got a free weekend, they went out, didn't apply any of the performance strategies they were taught, So now the question becomes, do you give them a free weekend or do you hold them accountable? And the answer should be hold them accountable. And the reason why, operationally, it's the same thing. On a mission, you should expect the first circle to occur, but you shouldn't expect the second to occur. And so the ability to use those performance strategies, especially when it's most important, because that day, the following day, was a defined time where they actually had a fitness evaluation. And about 50% of those failed. So you can see the impact and how well this works when you're trying to measure the overall readiness and then put that data together, apply it, get it to the right people. We found this out after the fact. Once the failure rate got high enough, we went back and looked and said, wow, we should have seen this one. But again, we thought they were ready. There was a weekend before the evaluation, but again, we were wrong. So the answer here, and really the point driving home is, it's able to measure when you want a desired impact, and it's also to help hold people accountable and responsible, especially when they have high-risk missions at stake. So what's next? It's really to continue to collaborate, with folks in this room, with the technology. We're trying to really help push the envelope on a lot of this, and we enjoy talking to people and learning more every chance we have because it helps. It's moving the football, it's moving the chains, it's helping us score touchdowns at the end of the day, especially in the military. We're getting ready to move out into some of the training pipelines and continue to expand. What'll be really great is once we synchronize these tactical and occupational life cycles, you'll be able to look across the entire spectrum, across SmarterBase, and look at everything that's happening and occurring. And I think there's going to be a lot to learn when we look at the cumulative impacts of training, the stress that people are exposed to, how they recover, how they adapt, and then what they look like operationally when you're looking at a 20 to 30 year timeline. So barring any questions, I want to thank you for your time, and we'll see you throughout the week.